So, Urida, can you launch us?
Hi, good afternoon. Yes, you are all set.
Okay, thank you very much. Welcome to our Public Works, Facilities, and Sustainability Committee. We have on member Mark Zadanowitz. We also have councilperson Tiffany McGinnis, and Carol Anderson is trying to get on, should be on in a minute. And then we have our, and I see Deb Poland, councilperson Deb Poland jumping on now. And we have our department head. So we don't have a huge agenda today, but we'll get our reports and see what's going on in the town. So Rick, who do you want to lead off?
Do we have to approve the minutes? Do we
have we have to approve the minutes first?
Yeah, let's do that. Any objections to the minutes? Any changes?
No objections.
All right, great. We move the.
And then through you, Mr. Chairman, I'll just give a quick update under communications. Regarding the, and we were talking a little bit about it before the meeting began, the rain event that hit West Hartford early afternoon on July 4th, where we received just about 3 inches of rain over the course of an hour and a half. So as you might imagine, having an event dropping that large amount of rain over such a short amount of time will challenge any stormwater management system. We certainly experienced that. We saw flooding in many low-lying areas throughout town, but the most impacted areas were in the streets between Fern Street to the south, Asylum to the north, Trout Brook to the west, and North Quaker to the east. And in that neighborhood, we had several streets that quickly flooded, making them impassable. So over the course of the afternoon, we received 17 calls for service. 6 of those were from vehicles that had tried to pass through the water and their cars became stalled in the middle of the street. And the remaining calls were for flooded basements. But as quickly as the streets flooded, as soon as the rain stopped, they receded pretty quickly as well. And a couple of hours after the event, they were drivable at that point. So I do want to commend our public works staff, John and his team, for their response to the rain event, and then really for their subsequent cleanup efforts yesterday and today. Anyone who was in the neighborhood saw the sweeper out there sweeping the streets, and then John and his team were inspecting catch basins as well. So we are in a good place now as we move forward after that unfortunate event that took place Tuesday afternoon. Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'll pause there and see if anyone had any questions around that.
Mark, go ahead.
Thank you. Hey, John, was that when you were inspecting the catch basins? And I know what 3 inches in an hour and a half is a lot for any system, but was there anything, telltale signs, anything backed up, clogged, anything, or just couldn't handle it?
No, as you know, as they report really monthly, we have a very robust MS4 maintenance program where we regularly sweep our streets, we regularly clean our catch basins, and or not cleaning, but also inspect. The first indication of, like Rick mentioned, the water receded quickly after the rain stopped. There's your first sign the system's working, because it was able to move the water as efficiently as possible once the heavy rains subsided. But our work cleanup since the storm on Tuesday, nothing came up out of the ordinary. We didn't find any unanticipated clogs. There was no blockages at our culvert inlets. Really, the system was normal, and we were able to really, for the amount of neighborhoods, for the number of neighborhoods that had experienced a flash flood, we've cleaned up all of them to date. And so we're just now out just re-inspecting known areas, low-lying areas, just to make sure, because we will have another rain event at some point in the near future. It's that time of year for the heavy rains.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Any other questions on that? And yeah, absolutely. I second Rick said, did a great job, and especially as you mentioned, the anticipation of it, getting ready for this type of storm. We'll note that my neighborhood is on the edge of that square, and we got it too. And Farnham, which is the sort of the end of that same trunk, And even there, it cleaned up pretty quick. But yeah, that was a big one. Before we get to reports, the other communication, we've been getting a lot of communications regarding parking, particularly Robin Road area. I know we don't have anything to report tonight, but Rick, if you could give an update on sort of what we've been hearing and what the next steps are.
Yep. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we had a situation. We do have, as folks know, we do have an overnight parking ordinance. So between the hours of 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. Throughout town, residents are not allowed to leave their car in the street. And then we had a situation arise on Robin Road last week. As Robin Road, as everyone knows, is a street. The beginning, first half of the street is a dense apartment complexes that take up the better part of the half of that street, and then the latter half of that street are single home residences primarily. So police department did receive a complaint that we weren't enforcing the overnight parking ordinance, and did go out and ticket cars. And we did receive an outcry from the residents who do live in the apartment buildings. And we do know there's just simply not enough parking in those complexes. So what we are doing now is we're meeting internally with staff. We're going to take a look at potentially coming back to the town council with some recommendations in terms of how we address that, whether, we go back to when we were in the pandemic and we lifted the ordinance townwide. We could also look at the possibility of establishing an overnight parking permit for residents, and we would set it up. We looked at it a couple of years ago. We're re-looking at it now. We take a look at certain geographic areas, primarily focused on that. Again, I'll throw out some streets, but Farmington and Troutbrook, Fern, and Prospect. And that's really, when you look townwide, that's probably the highest concentration of apartment buildings and parking issues within that confine of that geographic area. So we'd look at that again. We could look at changing the OMIT system. Right now, the OMIT system calls for 7. You're allowed to use up to 7 nights a month. We could look at expanding that number from 7 to up to 30. So we will look at all of these different options and then present them at a upcoming Public Works Facilities and Sustainability Committee meeting for potential changes to the ordinance. So, but at this point, we're not enforcing. Put a pause on the enforcement on Robin Road so folks don't have to worry about getting ticketed every night while we tackle this problem, and it is a real problem. There simply is not available parking for the folks who live in those apartment buildings. So through you, Mr. Chairman, I'll pause there and see if there's any questions from the council, but expect more from us by the next meeting.
Mark?
Thank you. So Rick, I know we lifted the parking and reinstated it. Did we not enforce it pre-pandemic, or what was, because it seems like all of a sudden it's a new problem, but it can't be because the same amount of parking spaces exist there as they did pre-pandemic. So what changed?
So I think we were, through you, Mr. Chairman, we weren't enforcing it on Robin Road. So we lifted it. So during the pandemic, we lifted the ordinance. So we had so many folks coming home, living at home, kids coming home, needed more space on our streets for parking. So we lifted the ordinance, which allowed people to park overnight if they needed to. Once we put that ordinance back into place back in January of 2022, we weren't enforcing it on Robin Road. So, and if you drive down anytime, any night, you're going to see cars parked up and down Robin Road because, as I said, there's just not enough spots in those. And if you drive around the apartment buildings, you can see what the parking situation is. It's not what it should be. for the number of units that they have. So we will we'll come up with a solution, present it to the council, and we'd move forward in that fashion. Does that answer your question, Mark?
Yeah, thanks. I guess the answer is it was just never enforced prior to the pandemic.
Yeah.
And I guess the knee-jerk reaction was a complaint. Is that what precipitated it?
Yeah. Yep. So a neighbor called in and asked us to enforce the ordinance, and police department went out and did that.
All right, thank
To
you.
the chair, to the Rick, I can speak a little bit about pre-pandemic, if you would.
Sure.
Mark, to give you better clarity on pre-pandemic, it was an established rule pre-pandemic, so people were actually, abided by the rule of not parking on the street, and the police took more of a reactive approach due to complaint, just like we experience now. A complaint came in and they went out and enforced. But pre-pandemic, we saw much better compliance than you're seeing right now. The pandemic just really created a new habit by lifting it for as long as we did, and those residents just got used to being able to do that, or new residents moved in without the rule being in place. So I think that's what you're seeing, a cultural shift because of the pandemic, for what specifically to your question.
Thanks, John.
Carol.
Thank you, Ben, and thank you, Rick and John. And John, to your point, I think the other issue is, like you said, you have newer residents that are moving in, and the communication with the landlord and the new resident isn't clear, or the messaging. So they're not understanding what the ordinance on the book states. And I think that's where some of the confusion is coming into place. But Rick, I wanted to just ask a question. I know you and I have talked, and I want to just raise the issue of messaging, because it seems like the messaging is still being lost in terms of when I speak to residents, in terms of when they call town, whomever they're talking to, regarding not so much the ordinance, but the omit, and for how long, and if they get a ticket, what do they do? How do they appeal it? So just I would encourage staff to just keep that in mind, and to think of that in terms of how quickly we kind of address it and work it out.
Yep. So so we've talked to everyone that's reached out. So we've had conversations with, I think, just about everybody that's been impacted. So, and talk through the appeal process, how they can do that. It's all done right online. At the same time, we've told them that it's, we are coming up with a solution. I've also talked to people who've told me specifically their conversations with the landlord who rented them the apartment, and they were, they had one spot per apartment. If they have a 2-bedroom, they get one spot for the unit, and we're told to park on the street with the other car. So that was a directive from the landlord to the folks that are leasing and renting the apartments to. Did I answer your question, Councilor Blanks? Okay.
You did. Thank you.
I think that's certainly what we've been reading from some of their letters, and I think the landlords ought to be paying those bills. We definitely are having some, I think, some bad behavior in some of what people are being told, and not being given, frankly, truthful descriptions of our policy. But and that is pretty disappointing on the part of our landlords, and anyone's doing that, really hasn't accurately described their property. But certainly looking forward to a report, and it has kicked around for a while. So and frankly, I think more people working at home and such is probably adds to this a bit as well. It isn't out in the daytime. So as somebody pretty close to that neighborhood, I know it used to be people would rent, driveway space. I think there was a lot more of that going on, and people understood that you'd have to find off-street parking somewhere else I'm not sure if that is as available as it used to be, but there is definitely that going on as well. But again, we'll look forward to your report and appreciate the update.
Sure.
So let's go to department heads.
You want to go first, Bob?
Sure, thanks. Bob Palmer, Director of Plant and Facilities. So not much new, except it's summer, and obviously we're big on school construction. So our buildings continue to perform well. We're not having any major issues. We did take some electrical hits over the weekend from that storm, especially on 4th of July. So we're seeing some damage to fire alarm systems and stuff like that due to electrical interruptions. So we did see some of that. Some of that came to light in the last few days. So we're still recruiting for a few part-time positions, but we're having some success with that. So we're still doing pretty well there. So new Elmwood Community Center. Again, we're still just working on getting the RFPs going. So by the time we have our meeting in September, both of those will be on the street well into the process. So I'll be able to report more on that. Capital projects, with the spring and early summer bidding season over, we saw a good number of bidders, not as good as pre-pandemic, but we saw really good numbers at most of our bids. Pricing seems to have calmed down. It's not escalating like it was in the last year and a half. And we're still seeing supply chain issues, but nothing like delivery dates aren't being extended and extended and extended. There are still some long lead times on materials, but they're not creeping out more like they were in the last year and a half. So it seems to have calmed down quite a bit, and things seem to be semi stable in that regards. So as far as town projects, animal control facility, we're still working on the design. The public safety facilities assessment, it's being conducted by Tecton. They've completed their site visits of all the facilities for public safety. They're currently working on drafting the report, and we'll work on reviewing that over the next month or two with the public safety folks. And then we'll probably at some point bring that to this committee as well. So DPW partial roof replacement. We just have some minor issues that we're finishing up down there with related to HVAC. So that is really done. Townwide generators, we're still waiting on to hear back from the state on the possibility of a grant for that. So that's really what's holding up that project at this point. Engineering offices, we finished up at the end of June phase 1 of that, and we're working currently on phase 2 of that renovation process. So it's coming out very well. Staff has received it very well. They're very happy with how it's coming out. So that's being well received. On the Board of Ed side, fresh air and ventilation, we're out to bid still with Duffy. We had to extend the bid a few times due to questions from bidders and some engineering issues that had to be ironed out. We are set to receive bids next week, though we did receive another round of questions in the last week that I don't know that we're able to answer for everybody in time. So, and they're substantial, so they need to be answered before people can bid. So we're still in the final review process for Webster Hill design. There is another round of state funding coming out in August for HVAC projects. So I'm hoping that the Webster Hill project will be eligible for that. So we'll have to see what the parameters are going to be for that from the state. So hopefully we can get some financial assistance with that from the state, and that we'll see what happens with that. For tennis courts, Hall is the final surface coating was applied in mid to late June. Conard is in process now. They had some delays with the rainy weather towards the last few weeks and humidity, so they got a little bit delayed, but that's wrapping up, so that's good news. Auditorium seating replacements continue for Hall and King Philip. Hall will be done this summer. King Philip will probably linger into the fall and winter a little bit. We do small sections at a time. We don't have to take out every single seat to do that. They go out and get refurbished. So we have flooring replacement taking place at King Philip right now. That's in process. We also have the Norfelt gym being done this summer. We're going to replace, that's actually an asbestos tile floor. It's original to the building from the 50s. So we're going to be putting in a synthetic rubber floor in there, very similar to what it's the same product that we put down at Elmwood Community Center about 7 or 8 years, and it's a really great product. So pretty excited for that. It's going to be the first one in the schools that we've done like that. Restroom renovations at Sedgwick, we had done the previous phase last summer. We're currently in phase 2 this summer, and that's going very well. We're doing security improvements at Duffy. That started last week as well. We did receive a notification from the state that we submitted for school security grants. We've submitted $3.1 million, and we have a tentative award of $1.2 million. Of that, we'll have a final award letter in August on that. So that was good news that we received from that. So that's our 5th security grant, I think, from the state on that. So we've done very well with the school security grants. Playground improvements, we're doing many schools. That's with some of the ESSER money that the Board of Ed had received. So we're doing pretty substantial playground improvements that Wolcott's been completed. Duffy, Webster Hill, Smith, and Aiken are all in process at this point. Parking lot improvements, King Philip began this week. Brayburn will probably start in the next week or so. At King Philip, it's the back parking area that's being redone. Pretty much the same footprint will remain. Brayburn, we're going to reconfigure a little bit just to improve the drop-off process, also to kind of create a separate bus lane and a very separate parent drop-off. It's going to be similar, but it'll be a little bit safer and a little bit smoother. So, and at King Philip, we're also removing the 5 modular classrooms that have been there for quite a while. So I've been here 16 years. They've been here as long as I've been here, and I think we bought them used from somewhere else long ago. So they've served us well and had a long life, but it was very, very much time for them to go away. So, but it's good to get rid of those. They're heavy maintenance intensive and big energy users. So we're happy to see those go. I'm happy to take any questions from you from the group. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Great, thank you very much. Any questions? I don't see any full and complete report. I did see on Facebook people were commenting on the temporaries going down and wondering what was going on. We weren't needing them anymore.
Say again?
Did we not need them anymore?
Yeah. So yeah, it really had come to a point where we didn't really need them anymore, and they were so deteriorated. It really just was not worth investing anything more in them again. So.
But they're not being replaced. They're just gone.
No, they're not. No. I will try very, very hard to never put portable classrooms on a building. So,
excellent. Thank you very much. I guess John, you're. Yep.
All right. Thank you. Through the chair, John Phillips, Director of Public Works. I did my best to pull together a report for this meeting. So it reflects mainly our notables departments over the last month. We were very busy on top of our normal routine work on our transportation system with a number of town events that really involved just about every single weekend, if not both weekend days throughout the month of June, between Pride events, Japan Summer Festivals, our own managed household hazardous waste collection, paper shredding, obviously Celebrate West Hartford, Juneteenth celebrations. Every Sunday we have Blueback Square Farmers Market, West Hartford Pride festivals, and the very recently just completed on July 1st, the painting of the barriers in the center. So very active Monday through Friday, as well as our weekend, supporting a number of very important civic and town celebration events. The pilot program continues for the 700 homes in the Moly School District. On the food waste side, we're seeing very good food scrap diversion. We actually had an increase average this week. We moved up to 1.6 tons is our new weekly average. That equates to about 13 tons. 13 tons of food scraps that we've diverted in the last 8 weeks with this program. So again, it's still early as far as a 9-month cycle goes, but we're seeing very good returns on that side. We have no data yet on the page to throw portion of it, other than comments, and we're getting both positive and negative comments on the page to throw piece of this pilot program. So we'll continue to meet and bring in the data as it gets developed and determine the next steps for this pilot program. Our EVSE, which is the community electrification program that we're undertaking with our consultant Stantec. We've had a public survey out over the last several weeks. It closed on June 30th with over 400 respondents. So we're just going through and reviewing the data now on that. We meet next week with our consultant and take that to the next steps. Some of the next steps that we will start looking at on top of this data is looking at our total town governance of EVSEs, bringing in zoning and planning implications and what changes we may have to make with a town code to include EVSEs, not just in a public setting, but also in our infrastructure, and make sure we're meeting new state building codes that come along with EVSE infrastructure. Our yard waste program, which is another waste diversion program that we have in place since 2019, continues to grow as more residents buy the barrel that we offer for sale. Residents are finding that the cart that we offer is the most efficient way to participate in that program. So we're happy to report that that program continues to grow on the curbside. In the report, we were able to finalize May's financial reporting, operating reporting of our parking system, and very pleased to report that May 2023 exceeded pre-pandemic May numbers, which is a good sign. It's our interpretation that shows that the economy in the center is very strong, with parking data that came in as high as it did, and has started to see months that exceed pre-pandemic monthly averages. We continue to see strong participation from the hotel, which again, this committee knows the town provides the parking services for the Del Mar Hotel in the West Harvard Center, specifically in the Memorial Garage, and we're seeing strong occupancy rates in the hotel, which means we're seeing strong occupancy of parking in the Memorial Garage. Overall, we had a good month productivity-wise of staff. We try to limit our intake of new work orders, self-generating new work orders, and we focus on outstanding work orders so we can close out the fiscal year by maybe grabbing some stuff that may have been in our to-do list. And we did that very well. We had a near 80% closure rate on a lot of work orders, which helped us get things completed. And we're very busy helping out, obviously, the CIP program and repaving. And we're actually, right now, we're just started phase 2 on this past Wednesday, phase 2 of the repaving. So we're busy as can be in all aspects of what we do. Happy to take any questions based on the report, or happy to report anything the next time we meet, or take any questions.
Great report as always. Lots of great data in there. Any questions? Tiffany, you don't want to comment on the ongoing pilot?
No, I mean, we're still doing it. Last week I had so much fruit, I had to put it in the freezer and wait until the collection day because I didn't want to leave it in the thing all week because I knew it would smell. But also I am on Quaker North, so at the end of where the flooding is. So I helped stop some of the cars from getting stuck in the water because I was outside for an hour and a half holding up my hand, screaming at cars, telling them not to drive into it. But some of them didn't listen, but.
Thank you.
So the number of stranded vehicles would have been higher if not for
yeah.
Councilor Piggott,
Yeah.
just so you know.
I mean, they may have thought I was a crazy soaking wet woman standing in a yard screaming because that's what I look like. But there were a lot of cars that were trying to go down there. I don't know if the other roads were blocked as well. Was Auburn blocked at all?
I don't
recall Auburn, but Griswold, yeah. Cumberland, Foxcroft all had
Cambridge,
local street fund, Greenwich, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for what you did. I know the fire truck got out really quick, and I saw you guys get out there at the other end of Quaker, blocking it that way, because that's a lot of cars were coming their way too. So thank you.
Not the credit to the guys. I mean, granted, it was a holiday, so we had to spin them up from home, and they spun up and responded as fast as they could get out there. So definitely a credit to their devotion to their job.
Yep, absolutely. So, and
I think
please
Deb
pass it
had a
on.
question.
Deb, yep, that's it.
Yeah, thank you so much, through you, Mr. Chair. Regarding the pilot program, so some of you may have seen this comment on Facebook, and I thought it was just worth bringing up. So this is trigger warning, and this is going to be kind of gross, but somebody had like a bunch of maggots in their food scrap bin, which is going to happen if you have food scraps out in the heat. So I was thinking it could be a good idea to just send out some kind of a notification or education statement to the people participating to just recommend it's really hot out. Here are some things that you can do to prevent this from happening, something like that. Maybe that's already been done. I just thought I'd bring it forward.
It has already been done. We Catherine Bruns is actually very good at keeping a pulse of both. She tracks the Friends Facebook page. She also tracks the I think it's called Nextdoor. It's not one that I'm on personally. And we address those immediately when we see them. I know Chris Nelson from DEP is also tracking it. He lives in the pilot area. So not only do we reach out to that resident specifically and help her and give her tips, but yeah, that messaging goes out in the app that people participate in. So we're constantly re-messaging and messaging and giving pointers on how to prevent stuff like that. But yeah, maggots just come along with any food waste. You know, maggots are in your garbage can, right? We see them even without diversion. You're just being, when you divert food waste in a specific line, you're just a little bit more intimate with that kind of piece of, ill. It's an inherent ill with food scraps. You're just more intimate with it when you're actually diverting it and seeing it than being buried in a bottom of a black bag that you're just throwing to the curb.
Thank you, and I hope everybody already had dinner, because if you didn't,
I haven't.
that's probably over for you.
Yeah, I know, you know.
Maggots are a part of the science project.
So I don't think we have anything else. Oh,
I just have one question about, have we had any people that have gone through all the bags? Like the trash bags or?
No, not in. If you follow the social media, there is a very good social media campaign that's called "Reduce Our Trash" on Instagram. I know West Haven has done some forensic dives, if you would, on their trash bags. West Hartford hasn't. I don't know if we will. I know we're getting great feedback from Blue Earth, who is collecting the food scraps. Really, we're getting excellent feedback from them and the quality. We're not seeing hardly any contamination, so that's working. And contamination that would concern us is maybe plastics and glasses that make their way in the food waste, but we're seeing straight food waste. Some residents are even not even using the plastic bag. They're just putting straight food waste in the bucket, which is okay because the collection tips it. And it just means they probably have to, and they probably are, because we're not seeing any issues. You just have to wash your pail every single week after that collection happens. That's actually the way I do food waste. I don't use plastic. I do a straight disposal of the food waste from my collection bin to the disposal point. But as far as the page and throw piece, that's a piece that's a little bit harder. We just had a meeting this week of how we're going to start doing an analysis of that and do an audit and try to see where that is. Right now, we're just going off public comment on people that are participating. We do know that we have a number of residents, and that's increasing, that are putting their trash out bi-weekly because of their knowledge that they're gaining internally of how they're managing their waste at their home. So they don't need to put their waste out on a weekly basis because there's nothing in there that's a contaminant, if you would, or creating a smell that the food waste creates when commingled with your regular waste. So we see that upticking, but again, that's still just more of an anecdotal observation and comments from people. On the flip side, we do have people that, I had another one this week that wanted to return everything because they don't want to participate whatsoever. They just have no social conscience to want to be a better waste manager from the household generation. And that's just being polite about it, but they want to return all the equipment. So, but we expect that. We expect that kind of seesaw comments from pros and cons. Our only response to those who don't want to participate, that's who we want to hear from. Why don't you want to participate? Why isn't this methodology working for you? Or what can we do to change it so you could participate? And really, we're just getting a cold shoulder. They just don't want to participate. So we hope to continue those conversations. And that piece of this whole part, the pay to throw or the actual trash reduction, that's going to be the long-term project of really changing a culture of mindset of how to manage your trash from the home to its collection point to its final destination.
Thank you. That was very helpful information.
Yep.
Great. Anything else? I don't see any other questions or comments. So I guess,
Ben, did you want to mention that Public Works and yourself included, and obviously Rick, Division 0 street audit, our participation in that?
oh yeah, sure.
As you know, if you haven't seen the Division 0 stuff, as the group works together and the consultant stuff, but sidebar that we're broken into committees and Public Works participates in the street audit portion of that. We did our first street audit on New Britain Avenue, which I think we had a decent turnout of 20 people at least. And we all broke up in groups of 3 and walked New Britain Avenue and just pointed out areas of improvement, recognizing it was a state road, recognizing there was going to be some inherent hurdles to really do anything substantial on New Britain Avenue, but it was good to get the audit kicked off and really just start walking through what a street audit could mean for other parts of the town. So I was certainly happy to participate. I enjoyed the group we were with, and you know, again, it's another small step forward to achieving some of the goals that Vision 0 sets out to do.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that, John. That was Kate Farrar had actually helped sponsor that along with Bike West Hartford. And yeah, I think anybody who gets an opportunity to go on a walk audit, it's just a nice stroll with your eyes a little more wide open than normal to see, you know, try to analyze what the street is looking like and how safe is it for pedestrians, and you know, whether the bus stops seem to be in the right places and that sort of thing, or and very educational. I've been on these before, and yeah, recommend them, and we could do more. And so with that comment, that pique anybody to have any more comments before we break this up? No? All right. Schedule. Traditionally, we have one meeting in the summer, so I think hot enough, this one counts. So the next one, so we have scheduled August and September 7th, I think is the next one scheduled. Any reason not to stick with that, or?
Why don't we maybe just do September, take the August off for the summer?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, that we have the September 7th as our next one.
Yeah.
That seems to be a safe bet.
That works for me.
That works for you too? Good. Okay.
I'm thinking of directors and Rick, of course. Yeah, I would love to attend that meeting, but if you know, want to give you guys time off.
September 7th would be great. Thank you.
September 7th works very well.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you. Hopefully it'll be a nice, quiet couple of months. And we'll look forward to, you know, twice as long reports when we come back. So
Yes.
But thank you all for participating tonight, and for anybody who's watching from home. Well, consider the meeting adjourned.
Happy summer.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Everybody.
Night, everyone.
Take care.
See you Tuesday.